Hey guys, what's going on? DreamReaver23 here with another Kerbal Space Program Let's Play. We are still working on our Moon Kethane base, and on our last episode we got our Moon Kethane satellite observer, this guy right here, set up on its orbit around the moon. So you can see it right there, and it's a good orbit, 234, 542, and 234, 856. Damn good orbit in my opinion, you know, going around there. Good for a non-decaying orbit. That should stay up there for quite some time. So you can see our Moon Kethane base, our Moon Kethane observer is actually going around and just detecting where there's Kethane deposits, and there's a couple really good spots in this, on the moon here. You'll see a lot of them right here. There was the one right up here, and it should detect some more right here. We want to see how big this deposit is. 274,653 liters. That's a good size pocket right there. But yeah, so that is what we're going to be doing on this episode. I hope you guys join me. We're going to be getting our Moon Kethane base set up here on the moon, and yep, I'll see you guys after the intro. Alright guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for joining me on this fun little experience. If you don't have Kerbal Space Program, definitely check it out. It's an amazing game. I am enjoying the crap out of it, if that's possible. I think it is. Pretty sure it is. So, we are going to be ending up going with this little section right over here at about 2049. So, with the mouse coordinates, you'll see right there, 2049. Right in this location, this whole area right here, 404,146 liters of Kethane, which should provide ample amount of fuel, liquid fuel, oxidizer, monopropellant, and xenon gas if we want it in that situation. And that's going to give us plenty of fuel for that on the moon. So, yep, we're going to head back over to our vehicle assembly building, and I will show you guys the Kethane base that we've spent a lot of time going through and developing. Honestly, a lot of time going in there, about 5 or 6 hours just in the design to get this thing set up. So, I'll see you over at the VAB. Alright guys, and I am back over here in the vehicle assembly building, and as you can see, this is not the hugest ship, but it's really awkward shaped. It's a lot of stuff that's not going out to the other fuel can get messed up pretty easily in here, so it took a while to make sure everything was working out smoothly. This is a 2-stage. Our final stage obviously is up here up top. The only thing this doesn't have any type of rover situation, so we will have to get a rover up there so that our Kerbal-nauts can get out and around. But it does have quite a bit of stuff on here. Now we can actually reduce some of this down. Mainly, I have an excess of the drills, which are not light by any means. So that might be something that we can go through and take off of here if we wanted to. Each one of those weighs 1 metric ton, megagram. I'm not sure what it goes off of, but it weighs 1. Total mass. So, I mean, that could be reduced down. We could reduce that from 8 to 4. That would reduce 4. I think it is metric tons. Right off the side right there, and that would definitely increase. But this is a large ship. We have on here, we are actually using the Sabre M, which is a part of the B9 accessories, the B9 aerospace pack. And I have links for that in the description below. But we have the Sabre M engines, pre-coolers, and air intakes up top. I also have like an extra air intake right here on the side. These tanks right here are spherical tanks. They are a part of the spherical tanks mod. And then you can also get the spherical Kethane tanks add-on, which is where you get these from. Now the spherical tanks mod, they actually do have the white fuel tanks, so you can get those. But I wanted to keep them separate because there's a definite, you can tell which ones are Kethane and which ones aren't. Which, in all honesty, I could change this out to where this was another monopropellant tank or fuel tank as well. They're the same weight, these smaller ones. And so that would allow us to hold more fuel, because this is quite a bit of Kethane that you can get right up in there. And we're actually going to do that really quick. Let's see, which one are you? You are fuel. You can kind of tell by the stickers that they have on the side. So this one is fuel and oxidizer, whereas this one is RCS. Get you to stick. There we go. Alright, so this is going to be the same size. Didn't change anything up in the whole thrust to weight ratio, which you can see over here on the side. Another thing to notice is that it says I got 2 hours, 11 minutes, 41.8 seconds of flight time here with the second stage. Because these are either jet or rocket engines, they can provide jet functionality from the first, whenever you're initially launching, and then you can turn them into rockets. We actually do have an action group set up. I believe it's number 4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this Saber switch engine mode. So with button number 4, number 1 obviously is our laser system to look around and color toggle. I could do without those there. I don't really use them too much. Number 3 is our drills. Another one I could use without, because literally turning on all the drills is really expensive on the electricity. Number 4 is our engines, and that's all we have on here. So, I mean, I could put this to where it was just number 1, but we'll keep it as number 4 right now because it's kind of a pain. With having them in jet mode, that's where you get that 2 hours, 11 minutes of flight time. And it does say that we do have a positive thrust to weight ratio, even though it's barely positive. Switching it over to rocket mode, which I wish you could actually show that on here, but switching it to rocket mode, it's a lot less thrust, or a lot less time. Basically, you have about 2.5 minutes of flight time in rocket mode. So we'll see what we can do with the thrust to weight ratio and everything like that, and you'll kind of see that out there on the launch pad. Moving up, you have fuel tanks, and that's one thing that's on here is you have lots of RCS and lots of fuel tanks for your initial stage. These are full of fuel, and you can see that we have oh yeah, it doesn't show you on here. We have quite a bit of thrust to weight ratio. Our delta V, 5,984 delta V. So a good amount that's going to get us quite a ways through there, and then once we get up there, we'll be able to land with our thrusters as well on our final stage, beyond the huge amount of Kethane, or of liquid fuel and oxidizer here on this initial stage. That's quite a lot of stuff. You look at the propulsion, and you can see that the largest tanks... What is it, Missy? So that's 17,280 liters of fuel, 21,120 liters of oxidizer, 13.5 mass for the huge tank in the middle. It is a large tank, and then the ones on the side, the medium tanks, have 2160, 2640. So a lot of fuel. And there's how many engines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 engines on the bottom down there. So yeah, good bit of fuel on there. But that is going to be our overlook for what we're actually launching up there, and we'll get to see that in flight. Guys, give me just a few seconds. Oh, and then you have the gigantic landing gear on there. That's also fun. Give me just a minute, and we'll be over on the launch pad. We're going to get this bad boy launched, so I will be right back. Alright, guys, and we are over here at the launch pad, doing a little bit of prep work right here. And so you can see I have opened the Flight Engineer. I'm using the vessel and the surface so I can kind of monitor my launch. And the biggest thing that's a help right here is to turn your whole spaceship to where you're facing the 90-degree trajectory from the get-go. It does really help a lot. Adjust my mic here. So this isn't the post-processing. This is while I'm editing, or yeah, that I'm doing this vocal over. So it sounds a little bit different than it does whenever I'm talking in-game. With these engines, the Saber M's, they don't actually do very well on the launch because there's not enough air, I guess, going over them. I could switch over, but they just do really well as the in the rocket mode. It makes it to where it's a lot smoother. So that's the biggest benefit for them right there. And you can see with having them going, right now I have 2 minutes and 13 seconds, 12 seconds of the Delta V left on them. So that's enough to get me up into orbit. Alright, we're going to go ahead and fast forward here. Alright, so go ahead and speeding things up. We're going to try to go through and get to our apoapses as quick as possible here on this bit. We break it down in this section to where we can kind of get out. I think it's 150,000. Yeah, about 151,000. And we'll go through here and adjust our trajectory so we can do the maneuvers and get into some sort of orbit. I'm not going for a really perfect orbit on this. Just enough to where I can kind of get it around so we can get out there to the moon. I like that chatterer. That's for me, the chatterer adds just a whole lot more of kind of like the in-depth, kind of like that more immersion into the game. It's a really cool mod. You can get it up on Kerbal Spaceport, and that's the one that you can see on the bottom of the screen, the little green arrow. You can actually force them to talk, but they do talk at random intervals, and there's a bunch of different ones through there. With forcing them to talk, it's just you just push the /, and you can make them talk on there. So we are getting into our set, and you can see that it's going to take, it says 20 seconds for the estimated burn. It's going to be a bit longer than that, but we're going to go ahead and kind of boost it up there in a bit, because if you look, we only have about 13 seconds left for our Delta V on our stage 2. So whenever we go through and eject that out, which it actually kind of does it automatically just because of the, right now it's like 5 point, what is that? Thrust to weight ratio current, 5.2, 5.3 right in there. And so there's such a dramatic decrease whenever it's, whenever it finishes it out stage, it runs out of fuel, that it actually just kind of breaks apart, and you'll see that here in just a second. Delta V is finishing. We're running out of our last bit of fuel. 4, 3, 2, 1, and you'll see it break. Pop, and it breaks right off right there at that decoupler. Usually you wouldn't want that, but for this one it actually works out pretty nicely, because all essentially we're going to do is start up our next phase. So you can see right there it finished out. We're going to go just try to get it leveled out a little bit and bring the speed up. This one does have a little bit of a spin off that first bit, which can kind of be a pain in the butt, but it's not bad. Nothing too hard to get under control. And you can see we got about a minute left of burn, so we can get down into the trajectory we were looking for. Now for me personally, I do a lot more work in the map screen, which is not as interesting, you know, whenever you're looking through this stuff. But, you know, when you're going through this bit, it's a lot easier to go through and kind of see your trajectory, see where you're going at in a lot of those. So I switch back and forth quite a bit just to kind of see how I'm lining up, because you can never get that perfect burn without using something like MechJet. When you're doing this all controlled by hand, it's a bit more finicky. So I mean, just try to do your best to get lined up on the little atmosphere globe thing right there, so you can kind of get that taken care of. You can see I'm off. I'm going to go through and adjust here. Just a second. Actually, that's all I do on that one. And the reason is because I'm not looking for a perfect non-decaying orbit. If you're not used to the maneuver system yet, it's a gorgeous little display for them. It makes it a lot easier. Whenever I first started playing this, they didn't have the maneuver system in here, and so it was a lot of guesswork. It's like, okay, whenever I come around and I just start to see the moon, then I'll start, you know, giving it full throttle so I can try to get out there, and it made it a whole lot more difficult to try to get some sort of orbit around the moon. When you're adjusting this right here also, you want to try to do your best to get it to where you have a lower periapses. If you have a periapses around the moon of 1 million or more, it gets really difficult to try to bring that in. So you see that one, the periapses right there around the moon is like 797,000. meters above, or 797 kilometers above the moon. So we're just doing some adjustments to pull that in a little bit more. 168, that's a lot better for us to be able to do. And we're going to go ahead and get back lined up to our next maneuver, which is, right now, it's on the other side. So it looks like, you know, we're going to be doing a prograde burn, or retrograde burn. But it's just because we need to line up to that point. Inertia is greatly reduced in space, and so whenever you kind of get it set up in a trajectory, it pretty much stays along with that trajectory, around Kerbin at least. So we'll get lined up here pretty close, and then we'll go ahead and speed time up. And you can see in this one is a much more accurate amount of burn time. So 2 minutes, 1 second. So we'll actually start the launch at about 1 minute. And that way it'll go through and kind of even out, and we'll be pretty close. We want to split that burn time. So whenever you can see that it's going to be a 2 minute burn, well, that's quite a bit of time, and you can go off quite a bit. So if you actually go down to your node and you start at T-minus, 0 seconds, you kind of start it exactly whenever it says, it can go off. So you want to kind of split that difference is one of the best ways to do it. So I'll go ahead and drop down so we're not going so fast and don't pass up when we need to start our burn. But we'll get down to 1 minute. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and we'll initialize burn. So, and you can see that once we get up to full speed, we're running pretty close to about 2 minutes. We're almost splitting it in half. And that's going to help us to keep it to where we're on a good burn sequence for the moon. So I hope you guys do enjoy this series. It's a really fun series for me. I'm enthralled with just everything space, and for me it's a really fun bit of science. I've always loved everything dealing with space, from the universe, the galaxies, black holes, quasars. I mean, everything along those lines is just really super fun and interesting for me to enjoy. I do hope that they actually bring in some of these. I would love for them to be able to bring in stuff to where you can actually go to different solar systems or expand out into that environment. And I do understand that they're trying to get everything taken care of for the initial part of the game before they start adding all that stuff in. And I can see them doing that really easily. It's just, it'd be so cool. Being able to go through and discover and explore black holes or things along those lines. I think it'd be pretty fun. But that's just me. If you guys have started to check out the series, and that's another thing too, if you like Minecraft, and that's why I think this is such an easy game for me to switch over between, is because Minecraft is a great game. It's a sandbox game to where you can go through and develop and build anything you want to, especially when you're looking at the logic gates and the computer craft and different things they have in there with mods. It's really pretty sharp, and I mean in that sense, and you can literally, there's no limit to it. The same thing applies with this game too. Right now it's in sandbox mode. It's just sandbox. You can go through and create these ships. But here within the next couple of updates, they're going to be introducing the career mode, where you actually need to go through and harvest resources, get those things to where you can actually build these ships out. And that adds that whole extra element of gameplay to me. It's to where you can go through there and you can actually have these missions. You can set up your own missions, and that's what it is right now. It's typically you can go through and set up your own missions. You go through and you say, all right guys, this is going to be, we're going to get this, like this one right here, we're getting a Kethane moon base set up. So I mean, for me it's a lot of fun that way, and I can't wait to see where they keep going and expanding with this. And in all honesty, to me, I mean, it could stay in alpha mode and I'd be completely happy with it, as long as they kept developing and kept putting new stuff in. Yeah, I'm stoked. That's amazing. So you can see right here that I'm actually adjusting my orbit down with the maneuvers from the periapses of the moon. And so we'll just kind of adjust that down to where we're getting about 240,000. That's, pretty close to where we want to be. Just adjust this out. And then we'll go ahead and speed up time to where we can get close to it, initialize our burn, and come around. Sometimes it takes me a while. I'm very OCD about like wanting to get it to where it's a good burn. Also, if you guys did pick up this game just because of watching either like mine or Scott Manley, or a couple of the other big guys, Kerbal Space HD, his channel has got a lot of really cool stuff, and I really enjoy watching his bases that he builds and gets them down to these different planets. Eventually, I want to start leading out and going like to Minmus, going to Duna, there you go, Jewel, Eve. I mean, I want to go out to these other planets and kind of get stuff set up on there. The biggest question that I always get asked whenever I'm in Twitch is just like, what's the point of this game? Or like, what are you supposed to do in the game? Or how do you beat this game? There really is no beating it. It's a sandbox. It's do whatever you want. Now, once they introduce the careers, I mean, you'll have objectives, but I don't see even at that point in time having an end game. It's just like in Minecraft, you know, they have the Ender Dragon that you can go through and face. That doesn't mean the game's over. You just keep playing. Go ahead and we're initializing our burn here. And you can see up top, I mean, we do have plenty of fuel with this system. So we still have 2 minutes and 35 seconds right now, 34 seconds of Delta V, of burn time on the fuel. And that's at full throttle, which is a really good amount of fuel. So we did spend a lot of time kind of developing this ship to where I would have plenty, and I say we, I always do this on Twitch. So anytime, most of the time actually on Twitch, we're actually playing Kerbal Space Program because there's so much time going into the ships. You can make simple ships that takes 5-10 minutes to go through and make, but when you're designing these bigger or more awkward shaped ships, you have to really go through and balance the system out. Now right here I'm actually contemplating, because of our coordinates that we're trying to land at, 20, 49, we need to kind of develop these out to where we need to get in at an angle. It's not right across the equator of the moon. So we need to get in there at an angle and try to come in through here. So that's what I'm going to do with this spot. So I'm going to go right around to the periapses and everything like that. And you can actually see the reason why I have the laser system on here, the biggest reason, is because we can actually go through and set up the moon landing base. Or the moon base landing, you know, is what I have on. That's whenever I was kind of testing to make sure this ship would get out there. So I'll delete that one out. But we're trying to go through it a little bit further to the left of it. And we're going to set this up. And so this one should go in as 20 for the top and 49 for the bottom. We'll save that right in there. So it's going to mark our spot. It doesn't help us get to it. It doesn't do anything along those lines. I think that it does have some ability. I know for airplanes it's actually great because you can actually just have it to where it stays on a specific trajectory. But for rocket ships, it does have stuff to help with an Romfraer's SAS kind of set up on there, and so you can actually help it to where controlling the direction of your ship with prograde and retrograde, but it doesn't have an autopilot function, which I like. MechJeb has the autopilot, and you can actually get it to where it lands, pinpoint onto a certain spot. Boom, there you go, it's good to go. But it takes a lot of the fun out of that for me. It's just kind of like having creative mode in Minecraft. You have to be able to go through and do it yourself. If you can't do it yourself, then, it kind of takes a lot of fun out of the game. Now you can see right here that I'm actually going through and adjusting this trajectory so I can get it to where it's lined up pretty close to that. We're going right over the moon landing base that we want to land at. So we see it's on a decent trajectory and, just kind of pulls it in a little bit. And once again, we're going to adjust through there and kind of get to that trajectory that we're going for. Now, since the moon has such less gravity, or such, you know, yeah, I guess less gravity, less mass, it's going to have a less of a gravitational pull. So we don't need to have quite as much. On Kerbin, to go through and adjust the trajectory, we'd be looking at like 800 or 900 delta V that we would need just to change the trajectory for that bit. On the moon, 135.3 meters per second of delta V. That's all that we're going to need on there. So we're going to go ahead and speed up this time here. Got it pretty much locked on. And since it says we need 12 seconds of delta V, basically we're going to go through and start that up at about 6 or 7 seconds. Now looking at the trajectory, so we're going to go ahead and speed up time so we can get around here to this side. But that's going to bring us right over basically our landing area. And it's not going to be, you know, perfect to the degree. You can do that, but with the size of the Kethane deposit that we're looking at, it is, you know, a larger Kethane deposit. So we're not going to get it spot on perfect. But we are going to kind of bring this out. And I can say that probably one of the best ways to do it is to give yourself a little bit more of a angle than this. I actually do end up cutting this a little bit short. We're not perfectly at where we said we were. But because whenever you're trying to slow down, it's going to go through, you're going to be going and doing a retrograde burn towards this project, so you can just slow down, so you're not, you know, plummeting towards the moon's surface at, you know, ridiculous speeds. And so that's going to make it to where you're going to get less over your target, and you're going to be further away, like basically closer to where you're coming in from. So we're going to go ahead and line up here, and then we'll speed up some time again. And if you guys like this format, I mean, I can go through and I can cut out a lot of this time to where you're not having to see me go through and work and do all these things. But I think it really does help, especially for people that are new to the game, so they can understand what the process is of going through this, you know, bit and actually playing this game. Kind of getting better with it is the easiest way to put it. Because whenever I first started out, it was really rough to understand anything, and I'm really glad people like Scott Manley and Kerbal Space HD put their channels up and started really explaining stuff, because without it I wouldn't have known, especially when we didn't have the maneuver ability and stuff like that. The only way I was able to get anywhere really was with MechJet before I started watching, you know, Scott Manley, and he would explain, all right, this is why we've got to do this, Scott Manley here, you know, and it was just like that was the way I learned out of the game, you know, the way I learned to play was just by watching his explanations of why you're doing this. Not just necessarily to do this. Do this. Well, why? And he would explain why. And that's why I hope, you know, you guys are getting this format and like it more. If you guys want, I can take out more of the, you know, the commentary, all those stuff in between, but I think that really shows you what to do properly. And even if not properly, just like a better way of understanding how to do it, I guess. So we're going to go ahead and shrink down that, we're doing a retrograde burn right now. So we are going to shrink down our orbit so we can kind of get it leveled out right over our landing area that we want to land in. So we can check it on here. And as you can see, by doing it, I wasn't lined up just perfectly. And so we kind of got way off. And I think that is actually outside of the Kethane area. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add in... I do try to do some adjustments just manually. And it totally doesn't work. So I actually go through and just adjust it with the maneuver again, so we can kind of get that planned out. Just to bring it a little bit more over our area. And it's only going to take 6 seconds of burn time, so I'm not really, you know, trying to go for a huge burn. But I do want to bring it in to where it's not so long of a wait between them, which I actually kind of bring it in quick, and I still have to go through and adjust, so I run a little bit further behind on it. It's like race against the clock at this point in time. Alright, pretty close to it, and we're just going to go ahead and start our burn. And then we looked that out, and that actually came out pretty well for us, so we actually got a little bit further past, which is kind of what you want to do. If you are coming into it, like you're coming around, and it's further out than where you're at, then you definitely want to shoot. You want to kind of overshoot it so that you can start slowing down a bit further on in there. We got this adjustments going through. Do a quick save. It's always good to quick save. F5 is the button to quick save. And that makes it to where, you know, if you do wreck, you don't have to go all the way back to the launch in this section. So with this one right here, I actually speed up a bit too far and end up going a little bit too far over, which it can get really finicky. So I'm like, oh crap, and I'm trying to hold back. I literally remember telling myself, I was like, oh shit, it's too far, I'm going to just crash on this time. But we end up going back and we get set up for our retrograde. So we're still in the orbit scene right here. But you can see our speed. We're falling at almost 500 meters a second right now. So we need to kind of get this pulled out, because 500 meters a second when we're only 17,000 meters above the, or 17 kilometers above the terrain, the surface, you need to bust your butt, because you're going to end up crashing into the moon. But it actually kind of does help us out too, because we have, you know, only 920 meters per second of delta V at this point in time on this stage. So we do need to try to get that taken out. I go ahead and I turn on the lights because we're landing on the dark side of the moon, which means we need to have a good bit of lighting so we can see how the terrain lies out. And we're pretty fortunate in this bit because there's no crazy hills. I've done landings before to where I didn't know where I was looking at, and I was landing in the dark, and I ended up landing on a hill that was going up at like a 30 or 40 degree angle, and it makes it really difficult to try land anything bigger than a freaking satellite. So as you can see on there, we are at what, 4,400 meters, 4.4 kilometers above the surface, and we're able to get slowed down pretty well. And with this bit right here, I just try to keep it to where the speed isn't going crazy. You can see that it also switched over from orbit to surface on the little globe right there. That's going to go through and help it to where you're reducing your surface speed, so you're not traveling, you know, at 200 meters or 70 meters a second, you know, diagonally across the surface. So basically, you know, just your regular speed on there. I got Missy over here tapping me on the on the elbow. Hey, you okay? Can I come up there? Or are you talking? So you can see with our vertical speed, and this is where the flight engineer really does come in handy. You can see our vertical speed is -8, and it's actually going down. I'm trying to get it to where we're, you know, keeping a decent speed on there. You can see your altitude above the terrain, altitude above sea level, which doesn't really work, but basically it's just saying, hey, you know, altitude to the center of the moon. That's how I look at it. Get down from there. Sorry, Missy's over standing on my Xbox 360. But it does give you a lot of really good information in this sense. And that's one of the best benefits of having the flight engineer. Not only can you see, during the vehicle assembly building, you can see the weights and your total thrust-to-weight ratio and stuff like that. But whenever you get up here, you have the surface information that is really, really handy. So we're just going to try to kind of maintain a decent speed right here. And I'm sorry I keep sniffling. I actually have a appointment with the ear, nose, and throat specialist to check out my adenoids. But that's not for like another month, so. Now the biggest thing on here too is that you want to make sure you're not overusing your RCS, and you can see I actually just turned mine off just to make it just in case we can go through and get a decent amount of monopropellant left. That can help out to go through and just fine-tune your speed whenever you're landing. So at this point in time, what, 250 basically meters off the surface. So we should be able to start see the light affecting the surface here in just a second. But yeah, try to keep yourself set up on that retrograde and keep it to where you're under 5 meters per second for the last 500 meters, and it's going to really help you. Especially with something this size. You don't want to try to do a whole lot of big adjustments. So if you hit caps lock, you'll actually see over in the bottom left my pitch roll and yaw are a light blue color. That just means I'm in precision mode with them. And we are at 50 meters above the surface. We're going to go ahead and slow down here pretty quick. Give it a lot more thrust. And come through beautifully. And we have landed. Now I am going to go through here and I'm going to right click on the engines and turn off the engine, make it to where it's shut down. And the reason is because I'm used to working in the VAB because I spend a lot more time in there, and when the engines are still turned off or turned on, I end up hitting shift and like giving thrust to them, and it's really easy to just like launch yourself off of the moon's surface. And you can see by that loud dinging noise, we actually have landed on a big spot, and this is the Kethane, same Kethane field, so we have 440,000 liters of Kethane in this area, which is good. So yeah, that is our landing bit. Alright guys, so we are back in the talking live with the feed here, and as you can see, all of the engines should be shut down. Activate, okay. Shut down, that's why. And I shut down all the engines just so if I do hit shift, because I do hit that regularly just because I'm used to working in the vehicle assembly building, it doesn't activate the engines and throw me off and launch me somewhere. So we're going to shut off all that. And as you saw with the detector, the Kethane detector, it shows that we do have 404,000. We did land in our zone with our large Kethane deposit. And so I'm going to go through on here and deploy drill. And we'll deploy this one over here too. And you can see they do take a second to go through, but they are filling up nicely. And we'll be able to kind of get a feed. Okay, so we should be able to go through and activate one more. And it will drop down our fuel. At this point in time, which I did remember that I forgot to actually set up a group for the solar panels, so I'm going to go ahead and extend those out now as well. But we did it. This is our first part for our Kethane moon base here on the system. And as you saw, I was using the laser system more just for getting my location instead of not using it as a lander, because it obviously doesn't work really as a lander. It's really just more for getting kind of on set. They do have a few options, but like MechJeb, I mean, it'll do the landing for you. I don't like that. I like the challenge of landing. It's fun. It's difficult. So we are going to let this time lapse here. Speed up time. See if we can get some daybreak. And apparently we need to retract some of these drills so that we can have the positive influence. We did get that from the Hexcan, the radiothermal generators that we added on here, but we didn't want to add too much because they weigh a lot. Alright, and we can actually see that we did fill up our Kethane tank. This big, huge Kethane tank is actually full now. Retract drill, retract drill. And so that's kind of like the basis of your operations. You will go through and you'll drill for Kethane, it'll fill up your tanks, and then you'll use your Kethane converter, and you actually, this is the medium converter on here. You can activate liquid fuel converter, activate oxidizer converter, which typically I do these both together at the same time. And you'll start seeing I'm losing 5 Kethane, but I'm gaining liquid fuel and oxidizer. And whenever we speed that up, you can kind of see that over the process of a long time. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. You know, starting off our Kethane base. Next up, we're going to try to go through and get a rover up here. Something that we can actually drive around on the moon for. And I want to make it daytime. There we go. Yeah, daytime. Electricity. Good stuff. So, yep. Until next time, guys, I'm DreamReaver23 saying game happy. Thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you all again. And until later, guys. Bye.